Jai Shri Radhe Shyam. I'm just looking for some verses and I'm going through a book. As I am wont to do. This book is called Sri Radha Sudha. I've mentioned it on my blog. You can look it up. It's by Kirpatriji. So there I was talking about that, the idea of Advaita Bhakti and the Madhusudana Saraswati Sampradaya, or Sampradaya, I mean the traditions that arise out of Madhusudana Saraswati. A very interesting development, you could say, in North Indian Advaita circles. It's a rather interesting little section of history there, because the story in the Bhagavatam, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming to Benares and interacting with Prakashananda Saraswati. So this mysterious figure Prakashananda Saraswati disappears, and after that in all the biographies of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we don't know what happens, right, in Benares. But only a few years later we do know that this Madhusudan Saraswati came from Bengal, and that he'd actually been something of a bhakta, and had been in Navadvip and had studied in Navadvip, and had been, let's say, influenced by the post-Chaitanya mood in Navadvip. And but this was prior, I guess, to the scholarship of the Goswamis coming back to Bengal. So in order to become a scholar, he decided to go to Benares, as Jiva Goswami would have done a few years before him. At any rate, Madhusudan Saraswati is a very interesting character in terms of bhakti and Advaitavad, and his take on bhakti is a little bit different from that of Advaitavad, from what we had prior to that period of bhakti development. And that has continued, and someone like Kirpatriji, who is very much an Advaitavadi, still can write a book like this and interpret it from his point of view, but without really contradicting the findings, let's say, of the bhaktas. They're simply looking at it from the philosophical point of unity, and rather than from the point of view of the duality. They believe that the duality, they, just like the Vaishnavas, they end up believing that the duality doesn't conflict with the unity, with the Advaita Tattva. So once you've done that, then what's left, right? Once you've accepted that the Dvaita, that the duality, that the manifestations can be more joyful out of necessity. Otherwise, what's their necessity for their existence if they were not more joyful than the original state of oneness? So that's why we say ekaki na ramate. Doesn't really, he's not really happy by himself, all being all one, like it's not all it's cracked up to be, like. Well, being all one and at the same time in a state of rather suspended observation status. You become an observer, just like in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we become observer participants in the Leela. If you're not an observer, then there's no rasa, really. The rasa comes from being in the audience, from seeing it from a third person point of view. My own life is just a struggle against misery, but if I can give it a narrative framework. In other words, giving it a narrative framework means standing outside of it and trying to and give it a shape. And a shape means a meaning. So the adventure of life is actually a part of that Brahman. More or less like Hegel would say, that it was God discovering himself in eternity. So we have a little portion of that reality that's been revealed to us as individuals, and we can explore that reality. And if you're fortunate, then you get the rasa. If you learn the secrets of rasa sadhana. Anyway, I just wanted to read these verses from, I'm just going to read the quoted verses. And not from the beginning, just from where I am. Oho bakī stana-kāla-kūṭaṁ jighāṁsayāpāyayad asādhvī lebhe gatiṁ dhātry-ucitāṁ tato'nyaṁ dayāluṁ śaraṇaṁ vrajema. Such a big famous verse. This is the verse that Srinivasacharya, this is one of those verses where I think where Gadadhar and Mukunda, they go to see Pundarik Vidyanidhi, and this is the verse that he chants that sends Pundarik Vidyanidhi into ecstasy. And I think also this is the one where Srinivasacharya was in listening to Bhagavad, and he heard this and he went into ecstasy. So this is a verse that sends people into ecstasy. Why? Because it's the one that is about Krishna's mercy, and this particular lila about Putana. Putana came to him to kill him, and still he gave her not just liberation, but he took that one moment of pure maternal love that did manifest in Putana despite her evil intentions. Even she went through the motions, she still had to play act at that. And to play act something, you have to feel it. So really in order to play act this maternal role of being a dhātry, of being the wet nurse for the child. And this would happen sometimes. A woman had lost her child perhaps, and she would have her breasts full of milk, and so she didn't have her own child, and so she would offer her breast to another child to be fed. So that impulse, the necessity that a mother has to give that milk to a child. So Putana actually, momentarily, even though her breast was covered in poison, she still had to play act the role of a wet nurse and have that maternal feeling. And in order to play that role, she had to actually feel it, even this much, or else she wouldn't have been able to convince anybody. They would have picked up on it. They would have said, something's wrong here. So Krishna, he took that, right? He took that little bit and made that the essence. He said, that's the essence. That's the essence of this person. So I'll give her that. Just like a person who is practicing evil has to cover up the occasional arising of good. So Putana had that arising of good, and she had to, for her it was a shadow, for her it was something that had to be repressed in order to kill the child. So Krishna recognized that as the part that was the essence of that person. That all the evil, that was just a covering on the real essence of that person. So even though that's just the whole, this is a kimutta-nyaya that they call in Sanskrit, right? Kimutta-nyaya. The kimutta-nyaya means that, well, we have been translating it as a fortiori. So a fortiori, it's a Latin expression, or maybe it's Italian, I don't even know. But a fortiori, that it's when you have made an argument that establishes a weaker proposition, then the stronger proposition obviously carries without any argument. If you have one peanut, then obviously you have whatever benefits come from having one peanut. You get 10 times more when you have 10 peanuts, something like that. So that's what this is. If it can happen to Putana, right? If it can happen to Putana, then, well, what about us, right? We're trying. She wasn't even trying. We're working the other side of the suppression map. We're trying to repress the evil side of ourselves. Even though modern psychologists talk about accommodating or integrating the evil side, or what they call the shadow, I don't think that's quite understood properly, because integrating the shadow means that you have to recognize your potential for evil, and that's exactly what the Vaishnava does. He recognizes the potential for evil that's there in himself. And it's very dangerous not to do that, right? You can see people who, in the name of religion, do evil things. Somehow or another, they're able to hide to themselves their own evil nature, and by doing that, they're dishonest, they're hypocritical. And by being hypocritical like that, they destroy not only their own spiritual life, but they make it very difficult for others also. So, at any rate, let's read. So that's the first one. Aho, bakī stana-kāla-kūṭaṁ jighāṁsayāpāyayad asādhvī lebhe gatiṁ dhātry-ucitāṁ tato'nyaṁ dayāluṁ śaraṇaṁ prapadye. So who else am I going to go to for shelter? If he can be forgiving of Putana, then certainly he can be forgiving of me. Am I close? Am I next to? Here's the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There, you're right next to Krishna. You're as close to Krishna as Putana sucking, giving him her breast. You're kissing the holy name, Chumbanam. The holy name has come into your mouth, your kissing organ. Your tasting organ, your glorifying organ, the most glorious organ, your tongue. So, Kangva dayāluṁ śaraṇaṁ vrajema. To whom else shall we go when he's been so kindly come to be present on our lips and on our tongues? Surely he will be kind and forgive us even the greatest offenses. Next one. dhanyāḥ mūḍha-matayo'pi hariṇya etah ya nanda-nandanam upātta-vicitra-veśam ākarṇya veṇu-raṇitaṁ saha-kṛṣṇasārāḥ pūjāṁ dadhur viracitāṁ praṇayāvalokaiḥ dhanyāḥ sma mūḍha-matayo'pi hariṇya eta ya nanda-nandanam upātta-vicitra-veśam ākarṇya veṇu-raṇitaṁ saha-kṛṣṇasārāḥ pūjāṁ dadhur viracitāṁ praṇayāvalokaiḥ. Dhanyāḥ sma mūḍha-matayo'pi hariṇya eta ya nanda-nandanam upātta-vicitra-veśam ākarṇya veṇu-raṇitaṁ saha-kṛṣṇasārāḥ pūjāṁ dadhur viracitāṁ praṇayāvalokaiḥ. Sri Radhe. This is from the Venu Gita, of course. Dhanyāḥ sma mūḍha-matayo'pi hariṇya eta. This hariṇya, this is the harinis, the deer, the doe. So these doe are most fortunate. This is the gopis who are saying this. They're hearing the flute, they're hearing Krishna play the flute, and as he walks into the forest, with the cows. This is the big scene of the morning departure. But Krishna's playing his flute, and as he goes into the forest, finally, you can't see Krishna anymore, and the thunder of the cow's hooves and the mooing and bellowing of the cows, and the calling of the cowherd boys, the yip yip, and all the calling out of names of cows, and above it all, somehow or another, rises the sound of Krishna's flute, and the sound of Krishna's flute seems to stay hovering in the air in Vrindavan Dham throughout the entire day. Or they catch snippets of it, or they just simply remember the echoes of the sound of the flute in their ears. And some things they have seen, and some things they imagine. So here's one of those scenes there in the forest. Krishna's playing the flute, and the doe has suddenly become still, hearing that sound, and turns its eyes towards nanda-nandanam, Sri Krishna, who is standing in all his threefold bending form beauty, in his vicitra-veśam, and looking at him with loving glances. They offer their pūjāṁ. So you see the pūjāṁ, they offer it simply by looking at him, by enjoying his beauty. ākarṇya veṇu-raṇitaṁ. Just on hearing that flute. And so there I must end, because someone has come to the